A jammed conveyor belt for 1 hour in one building can cost more money than most small businesses make in an entire year. Not a plane crash, not a scandal, a jammed conveyor belt. You picture a package's journey as a plane, maybe a truck, a guy in a brown uniform ringing your doorbell. What nobody told you is that the real story isn't in the sky. It's in a windowless sorting building the size of 80 football fields, running full tilt at 3 a.m., built around a single unforgiving law. If the belt stops, the money doesn't just slow down, it disappears. Here's the number that makes this make sense. Adjusted to today's dollars, a single major air cargo hub, the kind run by FedEx in Memphis or UPS in Louisville, costs upward of $1.2 billion just to build. Not a warehouse, not an airport terminal, a single sorting facility. That's not the cost of a fleet of planes, that's the cost of the building the planes fly into. Which brings us to the question at the center of this video: how does a company justify spending over $1 billion on a building whose only job is to move boxes around for 3 hours a night, and how does that math actually work out? So let's build one from scratch, hour by hour, and watch the money leave the building. Global air cargo hubs exist because of one brutal constraint: time. Ocean freight is cheap but slow, weeks instead of hours. Air freight is fast, but astronomically expensive per pound. The entire business model is built on solving one problem. How do you move the maximum number of packages through the minimum number of hours, using the most expensive form of transportation on Earth, without going bankrupt? The solution is called the hub and spoke model, pioneered in the 1970s. Instead of flying planes directly between every city pair, every plane flies to one central hub, dumps its cargo, and that cargo gets resorted and reloaded onto other planes headed to their final destinations, all within a window of about 3 to 4 hours every single night. And here's the flaw baked into the system from day one: that window is not flexible. If one plane is late, if one conveyor jams, if one storm rolls through, the entire nightly operation, thousands of flights, hundreds of thousands of packages, starts to collapse like dominoes. Keep that in mind because it's going to come back. Category 1: the land and the concrete. Before a single plane lands, the hub needs real estate, and not just any real estate. Thousands of acres next to a major airport, zoned for heavy industrial use, with direct runway access. Acquiring and preparing a parcel that size routinely runs $200 to $300 million before a single wall goes up. Then comes the concrete. A sort facility can run over 4 million square feet, larger than the Pentagon, large enough that new hires are handed bicycles on their first day just to get across the floor on time. Industrial construction at that scale costs roughly $150 to $250 per square foot once you factor in specialized conveyor infrastructure, which means the building alone can clear $800 million. And that's before a single dollar goes toward runways, taxiway lighting, fuel storage tanks, or the fire suppression systems required for a building stacked floor to ceiling with cardboard. Add those in, and the land and concrete phase alone can push past $1 billion before a plane has ever touched down. That's the boring part. That's the part everyone assumes matters. It's also the smallest problem the company is about to face. Category 2: the sorting machine. Inside that building sits the real investment: an automated sortation system, a snaking network of conveyor belts, scanners, and diverter arms that can process over 400,000 packages an hour. These systems cost $100 to $150 million to install, and they're obsolete within 10 to 15 years, so hubs are stuck in a constant, expensive cycle of ripping out and rebuilding their own guts. But here's what actually surprised the engineers who built the first ones: the belts aren't the bottleneck, people are. Picture a shoebox wrapped in a garbage bag with the label taped on sideways. A scanner can't read it, a diverter arm can't sort it, so a human has to physically grab it off the line. That single grab costs the system 4 to 6 seconds of throughput. Multiply that by tens of thousands of oddly shaped, badly labeled packages a night, and the hub loses more processing time to weird boxes than to any mechanical failure in the building. That's why hubs quietly employ entire teams whose only job, all night, is walking the line looking for exactly these packages before they jam a chute. It's a strange thing to realize. $1 billion automated system, and its single biggest efficiency drain is a customer who didn't tape their box properly. Category 3. The fleet. A hub is worthless without airplanes feeding it, and this is where the numbers stop sounding like a business and start sounding like a small air force. A single wide-body freighter, a Boeing 767F, for example, costs $75 to $90 million new. A hub anchoring carrier typically operates a dedicated fleet of 200 to 300 of them. That's a fleet worth well over $20 billion, dedicated to one company's overnight logistics, more than the entire annual GDP of some small nations. Put another way, by the time you wake up tomorrow, that fleet will have quietly moved more cargo, by weight, than most countries' entire merchant navies move in a week. And that fleet needs constant, obsessive maintenance, because a grounded freighter isn't just a mechanical problem, it's a hole in tonight's sort. Airlines keep spare aircraft sitting idle on the tarmac for exactly this reason, multi-million-dollar machines doing nothing most nights, just so the network never has a night where a broken engine means 10,000 packages don't move. Category 4. Jet fuel and the physics of hurry. And moving that fleet isn't free. Speed is the entire product being sold, and speed is expensive to buy. A single wide-body freighter burns roughly 12,000 gallons of jet fuel on a 5-hour flight. Multiply that across a global network flying every single night, and major cargo carriers burn through fuel costs exceeding $4 billion a year. Common belief says the expensive part of shipping is the last mile, the delivery truck pulling up to your door. That's not even close. The last mile is a rounding error next to the cost of physically flinging a fully loaded 767 across an ocean and back, every night, on a schedule that cannot slip. And fuel prices don't hold still to make this easier. A 10% swing in jet fuel prices, the kind of swing that can happen over a single bad month, translates into hundreds of millions of dollars in added cost across a global network. Money that has to come from somewhere, whether that's your shipping rate or the airline's margin. Category 5. The night shift army. But burning fuel is the easy part because machines don't call in sick, and jet fuel doesn't need a paycheck. People do. Here's the hidden cost nobody pictures: labor, at an hour when almost no other industry on Earth is operating. A major hub employs 10,000 to 30,000 workers who show up between 11 p.m. and 4 a.m. every single night to sort a mountain of boxes before the sun comes up. Night differential pay alone pushes wages up. Add overtime during peak season, then add the sheer staffing redundancy required to guarantee the sort never stalls, and annual labor costs at a single hub blow past $600 million. During the 6 weeks before the holidays, carriers hire tens of thousands of additional seasonal workers, essentially building an entire small city's workforce from scratch, then disbanding it, twice a year. And that workforce has to be trained fast because the sort can't wait for a slow learner. Most new hires are on the floor, unsupervised, within days, which is part of why the injury numbers we'll get to shortly look the way they do. Category 6. The weather tax. Remember that 3 to 4 hour window we mentioned at the start, the one with no room to breathe? This is where it turns into a liability. A hub's entire nightly operation depends on clear skies at one specific airport for about 3 hours. One ice storm, one line of thunderstorms, and hundreds of flights across the entire global network. Not just that city start getting delayed or canceled because every spoke in the system depends on the hub staying open. Airlines maintain de-icing operations, backup ground equipment, and contingency routing specifically to fight this, costs that run into the tens of millions every year. And even with all of that, a single bad storm season can cost a carrier over $150 million in a matter of days. It's the one category on this list that no amount of money can fully buy your way out of. You can build a bigger sorting machine. You cannot build a bigger sky. Category 7. The human cost. Behind every one of those numbers is a person standing on a concrete floor at 2 a.m. Investigations into overnight sort facilities have repeatedly documented injury rates well above the warehousing industry average. The physical toll of repetitive lifting under punishing throughput quotas, night after night, on bodies never designed to work opposite the sun. Turnover at sort facilities frequently exceeds 100% annually, meaning the average hub effectively replaces its entire overnight workforce every single year. The billion-dollar building runs on a labor force it burns through nearly as fast as it burns jet fuel. Category 8. The collapse beat. And every one of these systems has, at some point, broken under its own weight. In December 2013, a Christmas season surge overwhelmed UPS's sortation capacity, leaving hundreds of thousands of packages undelivered by Christmas Day, a single logistical stall that cost the company an estimated $150 million in compensation, reputational damage, and emergency capacity contracts. In December 2022, a brutal winter storm grounded Southwest Airlines' flight crew scheduling system all at once, cascading into a system-wide collapse that cost that airline over $1 billion in a single quarter, on top of a federal investigation. This is the flaw planted at the very beginning finally paying off. A system engineered around a razor-thin nightly window has no room to absorb a genuine shock. When it breaks, it doesn't bend. It shatters, all at once, in front of the entire world watching the news. So, back to the question we started with. How does a company justify spending over $1 billion on a building that only really works for 3 hours a night? The answer is that the alternative, a world without guaranteed overnight logistics, is a world where global manufacturing, e-commerce, and just-in-time supply chains simply couldn't exist at their current speed. The hub isn't a warehouse. It's the physical foundation modern commerce quietly stands on, invisible right up until the one night it fails and the whole system remembers how fragile it always was. A global air cargo hub was never just a building full of conveyor belts. It was a billion-dollar bet that time could be bought back from physics, one the entire modern economy agreed, without ever voting on it, to keep making, one overnight flight at a time.